Alright folks, we are getting into game number 1 of a brand new best of 3 for the IEM Shanghai European qualifiers. This is day 2, this is stage 2. We are in the losers bracket. So, lots and lots on the line here. For even a chance to play, they've got to survive and play a few more rounds. In the bottom left side of Dusk Towers, we've got the Yellow Terran player. Give it up for Soul.
In the top right, as the Red Zerg, it's Liquid Snute.
You know, we've talked on stream before about how I don't listen to a lot of music, but for some weird reason, whatever it is, I always have like these small recalls to like the Jet Set Radio Future soundtrack. And like Soul kind of give me like the feeling of that like Soul Sister like song that they do where it's like the creepy whispers.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I can't let me replicate it.
Yeah, oh no, I'm not even gonna try. There's some songs I don't mind embarrassing myself about, but Jet Set's like sacred. Don't ruin that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Like that was for me such a great game growing up, and a huge part of like, it was like I wouldn't say it's the first game I ever played, but it was the first game I really got into. Jet Set didn't even have like that great of a story. It was stupid, but it was really fun.
It had a story?
Right, there you go, exactly. I played the Dreamcast version, but then it came out on Xbox, and I was like, oh, it's the same game but all over again. Hell yeah!
I thought the Xbox one was the sequel.
So it was. I remember the gameplay as being very similar. The story changed, but it was like still a lot of the same character. Like you still had beat and like everything. So I mean, I guess yes, technically, but I mean, let's be honest, you didn't play Jet Set Radio for the fucking story, like.
Yeah. I just remember like the cops hated us, and there was like the big DJ that kind of was in. He was the one that was like telling you the story, and
he was
that's
like
about it.
Stupid guy from that Power Rangers fruit show you showed me.
What? Oh, the DJ. Oh, okay. I was very confused. I was thinking about the chef, and I was like, there's something like the chef. What?
Banana.
What was the guy's? He was Oh man, what is that fruit called? Like a flip. Damn it.
I don't know where you're going with this, but it just sounds like you're like derp.
All I want to say is dandere, which is just a type of dairy. It's not a fruit. Damn it.
Okay, Soul needing a bit of a pause. Hopefully not going to be anything too problematic for him. Nothing like a keyboard malfunction to throw up and ruin your IEM Shanghai qualifiers.
Durian. He was durian, wasn't he?
Is that an actual fruit?
Durian. It's that huge one that is apparently like really good for you.
Oh wow, this is a real fruit. I just Googled it.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, you know what I was thinking of? Freaking like Duriel or whatever from like Diablo.
Oh wait, no. This is not the big one that's good for you. This is the one that smells, isn't it? Well, anyways. And people have no idea what we're talking about, so that's great.
Yeah, we're nailing it here on the commentary. Anyways, Soul is going to get across the map with the Reaper. It's not going to probably get too much done, but still scouting is always an important factor. Snute's not someone I think you really need to scout, though, because there's one really important aspect to Snute, and that's knowing where his strengths lie as a Zerg, and that's the late game, every single time. Snute said it himself many times, and we've seen it through his gameplay. If he's playing versus Terran, if he gets to Hive Tech, he's pretty much unbeatable at that stage of the game.
What Zerg isn't?
8 armor outlists are pretty cool, but that being said, he's also just not the type of guy to really hit you with a 14 pull or do something really weird and crazy like that. Like Snute is a good player, but he's a predictable player. And in most cases, being predictable is bad. But for Snute's case, it's almost like Happy's like the Terran version of this, right? He plays the same way every single game, and he just wins because he plays it really well. So unless Soul makes mistakes or wants to get really aggressive, it's going to be hard for him to beat Snute.
Mm-hmm. And Snute, he realizes that to be a good best of player, to be a good tournament player, you have to throw in some unpredictable builds. So he'll throw in one or two. And, that's why he's so good. So not 100% on that macro front, but it's Dusk Towers. And if there is like a map to be 100% on the macro, it would be this one. Although we've been seeing an odd amount of Baneling busts in preparation for the Terran being greedy, as Soul is being. If Snute had a quicker scout, he might have gone for a Baneling bust, but since, it was after overload speed and after his third base was down, and I don't think he's going to try and do it.
No. It's also questionable anyways. Like, a Baneling bus isn't what it is nowadays to what it used to be. Like, that tank still would have been out in time, and you still would have had a hard time actually getting the Banelings through the wall and all that. But regardless, as you pointed out, it's Dust Towers. And again, if you're somebody like Snute, who can and will always win your macro games, you're like, okay, roll your eyes, 30-minute game coming, but I know I'm going to win. Like, why jeopardize that? A win is what you're going for in this game anyways. You don't really care about style points. Nobody's judging you. You don't win any harder for having played a certain way.
If only there was a way to make a tournament that was not dumb enough to be fun where that happened.
We've talked about ideas for that, right? Like the idea being like, okay, winning the game's worth a set amount of points, winning the community's opinion is worth a set amount of points. Like,
it just quickly dissolved into
stupid and favoritism.
Yeah, exactly. So that's never gonna happen. But anyway, so what is usually pretty important about TDZ is the Terran's first push. So not this harassment, which, is important in itself, but not what I'm really talking about. It's like the first test of a good Terran is what they do with their first 16 Marines. You can quickly see how they're going to play, like defensive or offensive, drop heavy or not. You can see their control, and you can see like their timings too, like how good was their macro up to that point. And if you see a Terran push back immediately, it's usually not good news. So that's really what I'm waiting for, because we haven't seen Soul today, and we didn't cast him at all in the qualifiers. So I have no idea what he looks like. Yep. I do. I also hate Soul.
He does play in a lot of our weekly cups and things this week. It's not like it's our first time ever seeing Soul, but
no.
Liberator gets taken out pretty quickly. Tank's not going to get a lot done. New Viking, I guess, coming out to pick off some of these Overlords. It'll be nice, but they've got speed, so it's actually going to be kind of hard to kill them.
We just haven't seen him in a while, I'm pretty sure. Well, he actually has not faced... This is his first time facing a Zerg. Yeah. Protoss, then Terran, then Zerg. So really, I am eager to see how he looks in this first push. So 1-1 Stim. It's timing up pretty nicely. He's going for tanks over Widow Mines or pure bio, which is something we saw Thermal doing. Interesting. Combat shields should time out pretty well with the 1-1. And he is going to go for the double drop immediately. With the Viking, I think that makes the most sense. And I'm sure Snute will have that in the back of his mind. To be prepared for something like this.
There's a Marauder with this, which is kind of interesting. I don't think it's bad, but like no need for Marauders this early. Let's see if it adds anything.
Not really. You're right. Like 16 Marines is usually a lot better, and then later on you add in some of that buffer.
Oh, this is great actually. He's kept Snute so busy with a tank drop in the south that this drop will actually fully unload in the main with really no offense pushing it back whatsoever. This is also where the layers warping in. This could be really problematic if this gets picked off.
Warping in?
Warping in, whatever.
I really thought Snute would have at least a couple of units up here, just because it is such a common tactic. Oh, he killed his own Ravager. But he does push it back, and he doesn't lose too much forward. So either way, everything's fine. Just calm down. He also pushed back the bottom, a little bit of harassment.
Right, credit to the multitasking out of Soul, because he did actually still continue to use the tank while this was going on to distract Snute. And I mean, a big part of this was Snute actually being distracted by that drop. But as the Hive finishes up, we got Fester's on the way, but we're going to see the Ultra Scavenge come down. And like once that Ultra Scavenge comes down, I don't know what Soul does.
Yeah, just, by the way, we talked about the drops, but we didn't really talk about what Soul saw with the drops. Like, we've seen the development of the Hive super, super quick. Hive, super, super quick. But Soul, I think that was his first indication, and that's not a good feeling as a Terran player. Now, he's obviously going to try and push and stop Ultras from coming out at least in mass number or with Carapace immediately, but it is still going to be... Right? But it's going to be super difficult to actually do enough damage. That sucks. And he still doesn't have combat shields? He didn't start that after Stim? Uh-oh. Oh, that sucks. He's going to be able to deny a 5th base, but that's not the damage he wants for letting Snute get to this point. I mean, Snute played like stupidly greedy in how fast he tapped, but it worked. So that's not stupid after all.
That's kind of key, isn't it? Though, like he was able to get away with that for a good reason. But this is something where the Ultras are now coming out. Katniss Plating's just started. 2-2 is already ahead in upgrades. 3-3 hasn't started, but doesn't need to. It's gonna be that same difference of just impossible to kill these units.
I like that Soul kind of gives up, though, to be honest. he wasn't going to be able to push in. He might have been able to get a couple of ultras before plating if Snute was really, almost desperate to defend his fourth base. But even then, he had a lot of lanes to work with too. So just pulling back, realizing that the time is gone to stop ultras from happening, and hoping that a long game will favor you is probably the smarter idea, even if it is the less ideal game for most Terran players. And he already had a fourth, so he was pretty well set up to do this. He wasn't like all in on three bases and nothing but barracks production, and he's getting those liberators now too. But it is quite unfortunate that he is behind in upgrades, that his liber count isn't super high. Snute did get away with kind of everything he wanted. He had like one denial on the fifth. And
I mean, just look at the stretch of red on the map as he goes to check this base, non-existent. There's a lot of tanks and a couple liberators, and this is really cool, but there's really nothing here concrete to stop ultras. In fact, the only reason Snute has infestors, I feel, is because he's worried about ghosts, which aren't even going to be a factor for this.
He had infestors from the very beginning too, like, yeah, he didn't even need to use them, but going in here was a little risky because the command centers were getting a little bit of Sim City, and there were a lot of tanks. The fungals go down on what left of the bio, though.
Oh, Corsair Bio kills a lot of his own lings running through that, actually, but still, even with just a couple of Ultralists getting through, that was the entire army out of Soul to kill, like, how many even died on in 3? So dealing with the rest of this is still going to be a pain in the butt. The Planetary Fortress actually still standing, but the last couple SCVs go down to Corrosive Biles. Natural third base, being compromised. A bit of a counterattack while this goes on, but it's certainly not enough to match the damage of losing a Planetary, losing a command center that wasn't lifted, and your third base being lifted.
Oh, it's absolutely game. There you go, GG. But if that drop had pulled back Snute even for like 10 more seconds, that's a lot more health in the command centers. That's maybe like another round of Liberators. That was almost a good position, defensive position, but Snute, he just got so much so quickly.
And this is where I'm kind of like, Zerg's disgusting, because I just want to point out that was an 11-minute game where you had ultras, you had aggression from that Terran too. Like, Snute is so good at this matchup right now. Like, just straight up.
It kind of hurt me, and it's not necessarily Soul's fault to have let it get to that point. I mean, unfortunately, he went for a third CC. Some Zerg players, they bailing bust that. Some Zerg players, they match it, but are still like, not too eager to get too greedy. And then Snute just is like, okay, you're gonna take a while to attack me. I guess I'm gonna get away with this, and that. It just boggles my mind that the infestors weren't even necessary to defend. Because I feel like that's usually what, the defense hinges on while you're getting the hive, is getting the emergency fungal when they rush in to kill you. And he didn't even have to. He just defended that drop with Ravagers and Lings. Tough stuff.
I just messaging Snoop, by the way, and he's like, man, I just wish my other matchups were as good as this one, he says. Well, who's he fight after? I guess it's unfortunate because unless you Thermal wins, he probably won't fight too many more Terran in this tournament. But anyways, Orena, we'll see you guys here in just a moment. Okay, as we see on a blast screen for a second longer than I was hoping. Quick note as well, while I was talking with Snute, I didn't realize he's actually sick after all this travel, and I guess that makes sense. You go to Austin, you dance around tours, maybe, like, it's easy to get sick when traveling, mostly because of the plane, but also if you don't hand sanitizer all the time and all that stuff. But I guess he says it's really hard to concentrate. So even right now in this matchup, which he's confident in, which he's really good at, he's having a bit of a tough time, I guess. So good luck, Snute, for the rest of this. Hopefully gets like a small break to stretch, blow your nose, whatever. Being sick sucks. In the top left, though, in a positive way, he is super sick, and especially at this matchup, it's going to be the red Zerg player, Team Liquid Snute.
In the bottom left, as the yellow Terran, it's Soul.
Now, Snute actually drone scouted pretty quick, and I like that he chose to do that on this map, mostly because, again, talking about Snute, him specifically, not all Zerg, he has mentioned aggressive moves, and players like you Thermal have given him some of the most trouble in StarCraft 2. And this is a map where I think that those weird Rax builds are really popular. They don't really ever seem to work, but people still insist on going on them.
Yeah, exactly.
But the point is, like, that's the one thing he would have been really worried about. So I like that he drone scouts to make sure that that's not going to be the case.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of funny because even without drone scouting, the Overlord is basically guaranteed to see it. So it's like not even super necessary, but safe play. So Arena should be a much different map. First of all, it's a shorter map. Terran should be more aggressive on here. You should not be getting two ultras without some serious like push from the Terran. And then second, the drop should be a little more potent. He went for that Viking. He had a clear shot into the main base, but it still took him a while to get there. Coupled with the fact, of course, he went for a third CC first, and it didn't do a lot of damage. Maybe this game with like a Wood of Mine drop, which is like the most popular build on this map for Terran, is Wood of Mine drop into tank push. But if he does any variety or any sort of that, then he should be doing a lot better. I don't know. I feel like that last game is the type of game that breaks your spirit, but see if he bounces back.
That's one way to phrase it. I want to actually rewind time for a bit here and go back to, because the thing with fast ultras, this isn't something unique to Snute. This is something true and other players were doing like long before we saw Snute doing it, right? And Beyond was like the only guy to really figure this out and just, I don't know, nail it when it comes to ghosts and using combination ghosts and tanks as infestors. It's such a hard unit to use, I get that. It's an expensive unit to use, I get that. I can't even use it myself. But it's just so strange to see every other Terran player in the world say, you know what, I think Liberators are better, even though consistently and constantly ghosts have proven themselves time and time again.
Yeah, I remember when there was a debate between us. There was a debate everywhere, ghosts or liberators.
You weren't convinced for a very long time that ghosts were going to be like the best answer either.
I thought they were way too expensive, and that still kind of is their problem.
They are, yeah.
Liberators are also, oftentimes the answer because Corruptors still do too well with them, especially if they get nerfed. So it's all problems everywhere. But I agree. I like to see Ghosts more nowadays. But this is interesting. I mentioned that Wood of Mine drop into tank push is the most common on this map. We have Hellions, first of all, which is already odd on this map in my opinion, and then second of all, a Hellbat push, which is the only thing that would make sense to do Hellions on this map, again, in my opinion.
Yep.
Unfortunately, even though Snute might have had some indication he does not have the totally correct tools, he needs to make sure his queens are spread. He's talking about the medevac, of course. The Lings do not help for very long. They just got roasted and toasted.
They were buying enough time for Snute to sort of dive in and get some shots on the medevac. I mean, the big part is, once that medevac goes down, so do the Hellbats, but fighting this is a bit fruitless on that front line. The medevac's so close to dying. 6 health remains. You could probably just dive through Fort if you'd like, but at this point it's being boosted away. Spineball finishes up in a second. That's going to help a little bit, but he's already lost most of his fighting force.
Yeah, and his Roachhorn still is not done. Finally finishes up. But not enough larva, I believe, is the problem. Yeah, not enough larva right now to get a lot of roaches. The roaches are going to pop potentially in the Hellbat's faces, too, and a Banshee follow-up. Oof.
This rally for the Lings is being really problematic. I mean, this is a great choice, again, for Soul to be playing against Snute, but also to be doing this and use the map to his advantage. Now, here's the problem. He's invested a lot into this. One of the big things for Snute, though, is he lost all the queens, so there's nothing to deal with the Banshee. Good game. Well played, good skull. The Soul's going to tie it up now 1-1.
I consider it a very odd build to use in that map, but hey, it worked.
Yeah. We had a couple of resubs hit us up right during close to the end of that game. Manajuana announces resubbing and then resubs immediately, so thank you for the 4 months. And then Terran Blade also for 4 months simultaneously. Thank you guys both for coming back for 4 months.
Woo!
But Invader is going to be the final map in this best of 3 by the looks of things.
Alrighty then.
Man, all these Overwatch launch events on Twitter are driving me nuts. Like, Vancouver's such a big city. Why didn't they do one in Vancouver? Damn it!
Do you know how often I hear about things happening in Vancouver?
Never, I know.
Yeah.
The only time
it's
you
just
do is
you
like
complaining
when you see...
about things not happening in Vancouver.
In fairness, though, that's not true. I actually don't often complain about things not happening in Vancouver. It's a lot of the people on Team Liquid will whine about stuff not happening on the West Coast. This is the first time I've ever actually truly whined about something not happening in Vancouver. Because for me, I don't even want to go to Vancouver half the time. It's too fucking far away.
That is true.
I contemplated trying to find a way to get to Seattle, but there's just no way I could do that like time or cost efficiently. It's like $5 for a bus ticket, but then you're on a bus for like fucking 3 hours. No, thank you.
Sucks to live nowhere.
Yeah. For those who don't know, I live in Farmville, Nowheresville. But, just players just needing a moment. We are in the lobby, and there we go. So without further ado, game number 3 coming up on Invader. We'll see you guys here in just a moment. Alright, things are tied up 1-1, and these spawn locations are actually probably a little bit more favorable for a macro game, but also a little bit susceptible to that same sort of Hellbat push. More comments on that depending on the builds. In the bottom right side of Invader, kicking it off, it is going to be Team Liquid's Red Zerg Snute.
In the top right, as the yellow Terran, is Chewy Esports Soul.
So, Snute really does have an Achilles heel, I guess, when it comes to this. And I guess it's not limited to thermal, but just in general, that early aggression.
Yeah. It was, as I was saying, unexpected. It's kind of funny, because whenever there are Hellions, I guess there's like Terran bias, I always feel like that's just giving something away. You know, when there's Widow Mine jobs to be done, when there's tanks to be made, to make Hellions over anything else seems, in general, suspicious. But they can be used in a macro sense, as they were always used once upon a time. You know, it was Liberty back in the day. But the Hellbat push certainly worked. As you said, in these positions, it could work again. You know, direct line, really not too far from each natural. And certainly Hellions are quick, and then they morph from those Hellbats. But it's also a good position for Snute to have an aggressive build. You know, he got a third base last game. He was droning last game. He held off on a Roach Warren last game. Here in this position, he might be a little bit more, well, of course, you know, scared. You know, like, okay, I gotta get a Roach Warren earlier, or I gotta scout better. Or he might just be like, okay, I'm gonna show you what's up and do a little bit of aggression on my own. And certainly on this map as a Terran, I hate dealing with the early to mid roach rushes before I have the appropriate amount of tanks, basically, and the fortifications on top of the ramp. It can be scary stuff.
Well, right now we got the Reaper coming across the scout. Snute's Overlord will be here kind of late, so I don't know if it'll even get in there to scout whether it's going to be too dangerous or not. But the Reaper is going to be so limited on damage. So the one perk to this map is there really isn't a lot of ways for the Reaper to get into your base.
That's certainly true. Can sometimes be difficult to get the scouts and just straight up keep the Reaper alive.
Do some alert.
Poison Eevee.
I know, it's like the Ivy part is a little bit dyslexic, but Poison Eevee. Thank you so much for subscribing. Do subscribe. Actually, so we did recently get back. We just barely got back over 1,000 subscribers. You're going to be subscriber number 1,003. Boom. Whoop. Nailed it.
Alright, so what do we have coming out from each player? Snute actually going for some fairly early Overlord speed. Again, that might be the whole, like, okay, I gotta do scouting better if I'm not gonna just automatically get blind roaches here. And for Soul, he is going for the Hellions and the Starport again, so he might go for an Armory too, but this is a build that I always am a little biased against it just overall, but I really don't like it 2 times in a row. Especially if you see an Overlord scout your base. Like, if he was planning on going for an Armory, definitely don't do it now.
Well, even if you started it now, it would be coming down so freaking late. But he is going to put it down, and Snute could go back and scout it. Now, here's where things start swaying a bit differently, though. Snute, last time, barely had the Roach Warren finishing. Didn't have anything to work with. Game was so far gone. This time around, the Roach Warren's already finished. He'll have probably Roaches in play, and even a third base started. So, Snute tries to get back in with another Overlord. Still doesn't see the Armory.
You saw enough to guess.
7 roaches. He knows what's up.
And the thing is that it's never, even if they aren't going, if they're actually not going for an Armory and it's either like a 3rd TC or something, it's not bad to go for 8 roaches and attack into just Hellions. You know, they're going to push it back and then they could counter and maybe do a little bit of damage. That's why Soul has to get a Banshee, first of all. Last game, it was the real kicker because all the queens were dead and there's no Spore Crawlers. But this game, it could be what saves him from a roach counterattack. This is really nothing.
Yeah. Realizes the case. He just picks up and starts walking away. I mean, I'd say For Snute, he is investing in a lot more lings. He's kind of cut drone production for the time being, and that's fine. He's decently saturated on both of his bases. But if he wants to make that third hum, he's going to have to go back to droning at some point. And right now, there's control in the game to possibly sneak some in. But right now, also, let's not forget that Banshee's en route. None of these roaches shoot up, so it's going to be a little bit awkward if he gets caught with those. Hellbat's actually picked up and now going towards the main, but there are queens here ready and waiting.
Yeah, very good of Snute to realize that. So a little bit of a split here, and this should actually be cleaned up very easily. The roaches... Oh, the lings get in.
It's not the full wall off. The bunker's empty. Lings go in before the roaches, so they shouldn't have gone in without them. That's... If the roaches were fighting these hellions with them, this would have gone down so much easier. So many more lings would have lived. But Soul's still going to get wrecked, shreked, and decked by this attack. Roaches are starting to push forward. We've even got the Ravagers out. That Banshee's going to try and defend, but I mean, it's one Banshee versus an army. It'll win, but it'll take a long time to do so.
Yes, so it was important that the lings did not get entirely cleaned up by the hellions, because if they were, I really don't think a lot of damage is done at all. But they weren't, and they did get into the mineral line, killed 16 SCVs. Morrison's going to go down to Corsair Bios, going on the supply depots, maybe? Not quite.
Actually,
this was enough damage.
A lot of supply depots, and this makes him supply block at the end of the day, funny enough, so he can't really build anything else.
Yeah. Certainly good counter damage here. Now, the 3 Banshees is nothing to scoff at, and the third one popping out could be very scary, even with a Spore Crawler at each base. They just kind of wrap around, kill the queen, maybe get the hatchery. I was very interested in what Soul is going to do beyond the Banshees. By the way, like, he kind of needed them. If he didn't have them, he would have been just killed right here. So it's not bad that he got them, but sometimes they do delay stim so long, that's when we start seeing mech, or sky mech, too. But no, it is going to be stim. 3rd TC on the way. Soul does have a lot of damage still need to be done for him, and he's starting to kind of get it. Where's that 3rd Banshee? Let's go to the 3rd base.
He's starting to run into. This is getting a little bit hairy for Snute, but he did so much damage with that first attack that Soul has to do a considerably large amount just to even equal up the game, much less get ahead. So the Banshee's still on a bit of a rampage, and nothing going to be stopping them anytime soon. But Snute's producing a lot of queens right now. The Spore Crawlers, it takes 5 Banshees to kill one, all at full health, and it's not what he has right now.
Snute, where's the lair? It's great that he's defending and still droning and getting that saturation, but with his bank, I would have expected a lair by now.
Yeah.
And it is not on the way. At least like an evolution chamber or two. This is getting a little bit worrying. So this is kind of like the indirect damage that can certainly happen. Oh, finally, the Carapace is on the way. But the indirect damage that can happen, you mess up their macro, just straight up happens to the best of the StarCraft 2 players. And the lairs finally started, but that definitely could have been started earlier. Maybe the Spire's already on the way or something like that. But he's dealt with the Banshees, and there really isn't too strong of a follow-up. It's kind of odd that Soul is going for Sim, by the way, considering just how few bio units he's making. He really had to wait a long time to get barracks production back up, but it finally is getting up here. 5 barracks almost done.
Ooh, Helling's running here, gonna fry some drones up. That'll be really nice for Soul, but Snute's still on like 60 behind this, so not that big of a deal. Queens are also chasing back some of the Banshees, and this game is getting to a bit of a scary point where Snute, you're right, like, okay, the lair was a little bit later, delayed, question mark on the Spire, but I'm like, is Ling killing a bunker? Like, what the fuck? But gold base gets taken in the middle of the map, and this is now kind of back to that course where Snute's going for range upgrades right now. That might actually be more for Queens than thinking about Hydras or Roaches or anything, but if this is going to go towards like a mid-game Roach, late-game Ultra, it's still going to be a good game for Snute.
Yeah. I think he still has the better game, despite what has been quite a few macro mistakes, really. He's got a couple of supply blocks as well, and of course the later tech. But it's still looking very good for him. I think these positions, especially if he's able to take out the Banshees, will just favor a big ol' Roach push. And if it's on a Roach push, then that, starts to favor the tank pushes for the Terran, especially if they can get into like any type of good position. But it's just so far off. Soul does not have enough barracks production yet to back up a tank push. A scary one.
Mostly nice. Liberator goes down. One in the main also deflected by the looks of it. So still 3 Banshees floating around the map. But Snute's abnormally large from queen count. I mean, he was 12, knocked down to 11. I mean, it's holding. And it's holding very well.
Yes, it is. That's a lot of queens. So the creep spread should not be, bad this game. If it is, it's I'm gonna blame Snute being sick and whatnot. The fourth base does get up, by the way, so probably going to transfer drones over there if it's not going to make more. There's a 62, we could definitely add some and still be okay.
So in co-op mode, Abathur recently got
Yes.
released, and his queens have the ability to do the auto transfuse, like the right click to auto cast it. It's so nice, but at the same time, there's so many times where like it'll heal a Ling instead of something important.
I was going to say.
But or a low health roach, excuse me, because you can't build Lings. But point of it being like, I would love to see. I wonder how that would affect queen usage. Like if you didn't have to actually focus transfuses, would that become more of a focus in the multiplayer like this? And we just saw how effective transfuses were at stopping the Banshees and the Liberator.
Oh, dang.
One health, not gonna be a problem, I think. This drop gonna hit towards the main, but it really is only one drop worth of Marines.
Drops are not like a super big issue for Snute, whether or not he really has defense automatically set up. In general, he's gonna have enough units to get back. Oh, that was
fungal is so nice. That's gonna kill the medevac. Doesn't matter whether it unloads the units or not. Corsair Bio gonna land on top of this. Boom!
Yeah.
Snute takes out that drop, no problemo. And the worst part about this is looking at the overall supply. Normally we focus on the army supply, which is almost 3-to-1, but the overall supply is eclipsed by Snute's. Soul has no bank to speak of whatsoever. This is not a good game for Soul, and I do believe we're getting pretty close to that tap out phase.
Yep, I definitely agree. Those drops are never going to do enough damage to really bring them back, but at best they could have held off on Snute's push here with a bunch of roaches and infestors, and that still would have been helpful.
Sketching on the map.
Soul pushing into this is certainly questionable. I think his better bet was to play a defensive turtley game, but GG.
Well played to Snute, as he will advance onto the brackets and stay alive just a little bit longer to keep competing here for the IEM Shanghai qualifiers. Again, Snute's one of these players who, let's not forget, has in the past, in at least one, if not two, I'm trying to think if there's a second one, at least one of the qualifiers get knocked down right away and then actually qualify through the losers bracket still nonetheless. So congratulations to him. He'll play against, I guess, Lil Bao next, which, is that a rematch? Who did Lil Bao play earlier? Yeah, they played earlier and Lil Bao won, sending Snute to the losers bracket. So that's going to be a little bit interesting. I think that one's going to be our last best of 3, though. So we'll go to a break, confirm, and hopefully when we get back, we'll have Snute versus Lil Bao ready to go.